We just started the stream, so you are chilling. Okay, we got some sound effects in the building. What did you use some of that nap, or was that on the Discord?
Dude, they added this into Discord, apparently.
Really? Where is it? Is it just like in the...
Yeah, it's just down on the bottom, right where it says like voice connected. It's like the fourth option over. It looks like the little like Apple Music icon.
open soundbar? Okay, that's why I heard the quack. I was wondering if that was, I thought maybe that was just like a TV show that was like playing in the background.
No, that was me.
Oh, this is gonna be a great one for all the cheesy jokes.
Oh, you can add sounds to this, Bernie. For this server.
I think you're gonna
have to do that. I think we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, because then we can actually add our. This is basically just like the control for
Pretty much the little Steam
or
Stream Deck.
Yeah, Stream Deck. This is basically like a.
I was getting confused with the Steam Deck.
Steam Deck with the stream check. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Okay, I'm check.
Whoa.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Start dropping bars.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. Oh, that's what's playing. I was like, I'm hearing myself, and it was because it was playing on the kick. I think I kind of want to push the kick thing a little bit more. So I'm going to be doing that, in YouTube are kind of the primary sources for anybody that's kind of watching now. And we'll watch this later. I think kick and YouTube is kind of where I want to go with it. Twitch has been nice, but it hasn't really paid off the way I thought it would, or the way I would like it to.
Twitch is such a mess for small channels. It's tough.
So we're going to be switching to that. But before we do that, I'm going to make sure that the kick is actually updated to the channel name and the channel title. That's the only thing that sucks, is that you have to do it manually. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. So yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying your Friday afternoon. I know I had the day off, and thank you to Pete for tuning in and coming live, because I actually have a tournament that I have to coach on Sunday and Monday. Gotta make a little 3-hour trip to Portland, so that'll be fun. But at the end of the day, like I said, everybody shout out Pete in the chat if you can. Whether you do it now or whether you do it later, shout out to Pete for being the GOAT.
Oh no. I appreciate it, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And hey, we got a lot to talk about. Whoops. Again, loud. I'm not ready. I'm too much in weekend mode. But no, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Like I said, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics and the comeback that they're having right now. We talked about we didn't talk about it, but Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown came out and said, "Don't give us this game. Don't give up this game." And right now it is 3-2 for the current basketball series. So we will go over that series and what we both think about it. Obviously, me being a Boston fan, I got this picture of Rocky Balboa going against this guy. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but we do have a lot to talk about because
I gotta look at what you just mentioned. You just said Rocky Balboa going against this guy.
Sorry, I'm not a man of culture. I know.
Ivan Drago? What?
I know.
I'll excuse it.
I'm not a man of culture. I'm sorry.
At this point, it's old. That's pre us.
Yeah. I apologize to all my old heads out there that watch the series. But again, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about Adam Silver's biased. We actually are going to mention that a little bit with the way that he mentioned, the 90s and how he thought of what basketball was. And if I can find it here on this chat, here we go. He had an interview with Kevin Garnett on Showtime Basketball. So I would definitely check that out if you have Showtime. But we are going to talk about that in terms of what we think about it. I know, Pete, we didn't speak about it. I told you about it, but that's going to be an interesting topic that I want to hear your perspective on. And then, of course, we got a lot of other things. We're going to talk about this. D'Angelo Russell sinking a 4-year, $100 million extension with the Wolves. Again, this is something that has been coming out. We also see here that Kyrie Irving, a lot of chatter has been going on. I know he just had a Instagram live that he went through, and he's kind of calling out some fans. I think he's calling out the Laker fans that keep mentioning him in his mentions. So I think that's something we'll talk about as well. We'll also talk about LeBron James and the quote unquote fake retirement that he came out with. We obviously know that that's not going to be the case, but there is a report that he's going to be out for 2 months with a foot surgery, and potentially could be a USC Trojan. That's rumors, of course.
Wait, who?
LeBron James could be a USC Trojan.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
But yeah, obviously joking in that matter. But we are going to talk about this and so much more. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Actually, before we do that, Pete, how's your day going, man? We never really check in with each other on the streams. We usually do that chat on the text wise, but how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm so far so good. I can't complain. I'm just getting into the weekend. I got I got Street Fighter 6 coming out next week. I'm good. As far as I'm concerned, I got that game and I'm set. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I got
All right.
basketball, I got playoffs and Street Fighter 6. I mean, life cannot get much better as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. And the sun is out, so it's going to be a great day. Clear
true.
skies. If you're in the Seattle or Pacific Northwest, it's going to be a great day when there's clear skies. Nothing beats a Seattle summer day. That is just my opinion, but
I'm 100% with you on that.
But what's not my opinion, segue, is this Miami Heat losing to the Boston Celtics. That is absolute facts, and we're going to talk about it here on The Charge. Again, before we do that, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe. We, of course, have to do our self-promotion just to make sure that people know that this channel is for everybody, anybody that talks about sports. We want to hear your opinions. We want to hear your stuff. So make sure that you guys mention The Charge on Twitter. Make sure you mention it on YouTube. Share it with your friends and families. Again, we're trying to grow this channel. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. We're trying to grow it more and more and more. And really, like I said, make a good thing out of it, because again, this is all for you guys. This is all for having a basketball community where we could talk about things and do it in a way that is on facts and also just based on, of course, some sheer opinion. So of course you have to be tough when it comes to people critiquing your teams, but we're here to talk about the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. Like I said, this game was won by the Boston Celtics 110-97. Pete, I've done a lot of self-promotion and talking. I'll let you start off with this. What did you make of the game, and what do you think? Is Boston back?
It's really tough to say Boston's back. It's kind of, let me break it down like this. This is the thing that I think I noticed the most. I'm into the body language part of this. I'm into the chemistry, the people watching aspect of basketball. It's kind of more my specialty, right? You're more the X's and O's guy. I got the attitude. I feel like I'm a good reader of attitude. And I feel like what I've noticed in these last two games is the tables have turned emotionally, right? Like, I feel like where the Heat were at the beginning of this series is now where Boston is at. And they are embodying the things that put the Heat in the position they are in and put the Boston Celtics in the position they were in, right? So it's really interesting. Like, I think the Celtics, like, one of the reasons they're so frustrating, not just for their own fans like you, Bernie, but for everybody, is because we've seen them in this position 4 times now, right? Like, it's been a good stretch for this particular core roster of Celtics players. We have seen them make it far into the playoffs so many times that we know them really well. It's not quite to the level of, like, let's say, like Cleveland and Golden State back in the, mid 2010s, right? But we do know them in the same type of capacity as we knew those teams. One of the things I think that's always stuck out to me with the Celtics team is, one, they're not self-starters. Like, they do not get themselves going as well as you would hope they should, right? Like, it takes a lot for them to get to that mental spot that they need to be in to really lock in. But that also bleeds into other aspects of, like, the game. Like, in particular, one of the things I noticed the most about the first 3 games of this series is every single player on the Celtics was either doing too little or too much. There was nobody doing exactly what they needed to do. Jason Tatum taking a back seat on offense and defense, so he was really sticking out. I felt like Jaylen Brown in particular's defense, him and Marcus Smart in those first 3 games, was really bad. and Derek
Yeah.
White for that matter. But just of the main core guys of the starters, Jaylen Brown, for all the talk he gets as an all NBA player, all defensive type of guy, he was not playing to the standard that we were accustomed to as far as Jaylen Brown is concerned.
Hmm.
And that's where I really have to question like how this season has affected him as a singular player, right? Like we've seen some really interesting kind of ups and downs with Jaylen Brown, and I think obviously this team, he's their second best guy some nights, more than maybe they should be. He's the first best guy on the team. It he needs to be locked in on defense for this team to go far. And realistically, that's why, myself, you, many other people who watch a lot of basketball thought that the Heat didn't really have a good chance in this series, is because
Hmm.
if you get Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Rob Williams, whoever else you want to name, but in particular Tatum and Brown to play their best defense,
Hmm.
they could eliminate the one advantage that the Heat have, which is Jimmy Butler, right? Like really step up, match up well against him. They're bigger than pretty much everybody on the Heat, right? And they can just man up, you would think, but they just were not doing that. But the thing I saw in the last two games is that everybody is going back to playing their role. Like the Celtics are finally understanding we're not playing like the team that we were when we made it as far as we have. You know what I mean? Like when we went to the
Yeah.
finals last season, we were all doing exactly what we needed to be doing, trusting each other, playing to our strengths individually as a unit, but then coming together all in
Hmm.
one, shared goal. And I feel like the Celtics have finally understood that that's not what they were doing. Pretty
Yeah.
much the entire playoffs. Like I don't think they put it together against Atlanta. I don't. I just think they were better, so much better that
Yeah.
they didn't need to. And not really all that dissimilar in the last series either. Like they really, I don't know, man. They just really need to. It's kind of the biggest drawback of having a guy like Joe Mazzulla as their coach, right? Like that was the thing with Ime, is he understood that he needed to be that guy, the guy to really like
Yeah.
put the hammer down like a strict father and be like, hey, you guys are playing like idiots. Get your
Hmm.
heads out of your butt, do what you are good at, and it'll all come together. And I don't know. I guess this is my biggest question for you, Bernie. Who do you think that person is for this team? Because it's not Joe. There's no way it's Joe. It's just not.
I
I
think
would
it's.
find it.
No, go
I,
ahead.
I was gonna say. I think most people would say Marcus Smart, but I really don't like. What was he doing the other games? I feel like he's been saying that the whole time. And if anything, he's he just hasn't been playing good enough to say those things. And that's
Yeah.
what we've always criticized Marcus Smart for, is like if you're going to be the leader, you need to be better, right?
Yeah.
And not make bad choices. I have kind of seen something different from Tatum these last two games. I
Hmm.
feel like he's really, I don't know if he's come to grips with who he is as a player or mentally what he needs to be in this series for them to get over this hump, but I do feel like I've seen something different in him, a different level of intensity, just making better choices and really being locked
Hmm.
in from the second the game starts. So, what do you think, Bernie? Who's the guy for them that's kind of leading this? 'Cause it it was simple strategic changes for them to get back on top of this Heat team. Like they were getting completely flustered by the zone for so long, and realistically, like that's not a hard thing to overcome if you're a team like the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, what it really came down to, I do think that Joe deserves some credit. Thinking really more hard on it. I think Joe is part of it, but he's also part of the reason why we struggled at times. It's just,
Sure.
he's a young coach. Like he's 34 years old, and if you're kind of around the age of these players, or even a little bit younger compared to some of these guys, it's hard
Yeah.
to captivate the room. And so the one thing I want to do is just apologize to Missoula, and give him a little bit more credit than what I've been giving him. Um,
Well,
but
and sorry to interrupt you, Bernie, but let me just make clear. I'm not trying to blame Joe 100%, because if
yeah,
anything, like I would give him a lot of credit. Like if there is one thing that I feel like he's shown in this playoff run that a lot of coaches do not show, and we haven't seen it directly, but he clearly has a high ability to receive and uh, act upon criticism, right?
Yeah.
Like he is actively engaging with the criticism he is receiving, whether it's
Hmm.
externally from all the people saying it out in the world about what the
Yeah.
Celtics are doing, or whether it's internally, like organizationally, if Brad is like, giving him feedback, the players are like, hey, what are we doing? He has shown he's not like the Coach Bud type, right? And I know
Yeah.
that's harder because he is in his, early 30s, but even then, a lot of coaches still would not change to the level that Joe has shown the
Yeah.
ability to change himself. So, yeah, no, credit to Joe, because whether or not it's him making these changes, it does take a lot of I don't know, it takes a lot of grit to like make those choices and show that like maybe you didn't know what you were doing in the first place. Like
Exactly.
that takes a strong character, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, with the guy that we really have to start looking at, and Drunk, I know you're joking about it, but I think it is Al Horford. I think Al Horford is a vet that, again,
Coach
like
Horford.
thinking back to that year where we lost Al Horford and he went to the 76ers, like there was a void missing for that Boston Celtics team. Um, and like having him back and like having him acclimated to the role that he was in just a couple years before, with Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, like he is definitely one of those guys that I think is a quiet leader in terms of getting these two guys to play the right way. I mean, the thing that really what made it very fun to watch the Celtics yesterday more than any other day, even the game before that, was just how simple everybody's play was. Like, I got frustrated in the chat with some of my other friends about, Tatum's over dribbling and then tries to pass it and it turns it over to Jimmy Butler, or Jalen Brown's spin move that he tries to do between two guys. I mean, to me, those were the type of things that got the Celtics in trouble against the Golden State Warriors just 2 seasons ago, or sorry, a season ago, when they were in the NBA Finals just a year ago. It's just doing those kind of decision makings and the things that they know that they probably shouldn't do, but they end up doing it anyway. I think Al Horford has done a better job of getting these guys galvanized and going. And also, I think maybe Blake Griffin is another guy that you can maybe say, again, I am not the biggest Blake Griffin guy. You know my stance on Blake Griffin. Um, but maybe as a leader, he's a different guy. Maybe
Yeah,
he's
for
he's a guy
sure.
that like galvanizes the troops just like Al Horford. I think what it came down to is I think Missoula and the coaching staff, maybe even Brad Stevens if you want to include him, but I think
He had to have done something.
they sat down with these two players and said, "Look, when you guys keep it simple, when you guys are not doing those stupid Drew Hanlon moves, like, look how simple the game is, and look how
Mhm.
simple you are when you attack the basket, when you don't settle for threes, and you don't do
Yeah.
these crazy spin moves. I mean, look at the turnovers that they had tonight, or I should say
Yep.
yesterday. Tatum had four, which I think he's one of those guys that is going to have those type of turnovers. But if you limit the turnovers from Smart, if you limit the turnovers from Brown, then I think you're in a good position. You're in a good position to not give away free points to this Miami Heat team, who again is well coached. We know Eric Spoelstra. We know what he's able to do. Like, this guy is able to coach. Basically, you can get your YMCA rec team, and this guy can get you very far in the playoffs. Um,
Mhm.
and I just,
I mean, he's showing it.
yeah, and I just think it kind of goes to show you that when these, like, this team through like roster from the top to the bottom is so much better than this roster. Like, I don't see in any possible way that this Miami Heat team roster wise is better than the Boston Celtics. But the Boston Celtics continuously, I think, obviously, like you said, from the Atlanta series, even through a little bit of that Philly series, maybe towards the end they kind of got back to it, but then they reverted back. Was just that grit and grind that these guys have been through. I mean, these guys, just like I would say the Nuggets have been in their series like many years ago, all these guys have been in high intensity playoff games. Like, this team faced off against a LeBron James team, took LeBron James to Game 7. Played a bunch of really tough teams, played this Miami Heat team and lost to them.
Yep.
Like, they have been
Beat him
bad.
too.
They've been, yeah. I mean, they've been battling with each other. They've been battling together for a very long time. And so, I just think that when you think back to those days, when you think back to the days that they fought with each other, the days that they fought fought together to battle other teams. But I think that stuff kind of matters at the end of the day. Is like the battles that you've been through. Now, to me, it's more about getting the job done, because like we said, we know Boston Celtics fans. Um, and I'm included in this. They can be a little spoiled, and they can be a little bit prima donna-ish in terms of wanting a championship. The city of Boston, I think they just got spoiled with Tom Brady winning all those championships. And obviously Boston back in the 60s and 70s, and well, I guess 60s, early 70s, and then to whatchamacallit, and then the 80s with Larry Bird. Like they expect championships, and I think that this team can do it. I think this team is going to have the world on its shoulder. But here's the thing: like, if they get this game to a game 7, Pete, guess what day that game is on?
What day is it?
It's going to be on Monday. A weekend holiday, day off. You're going to get a ton. Like,
everybody's watching.
Everybody's watching. You're going to get fans. Like, the pressure has flipped now to Miami, like, to get it done. And I think that this is going to be a battle of a series for tomorrow's game, game number 6, because again, like, the pressure is on Miami now to close it out, because if they don't close it out, then they're going to have to fly to Boston. There may be another 3-hour delay, a mysterious 3-hour delay. And they're going to have to go out and battle. Because I think yesterday, like we saw, like, Jimmy Butler didn't really play very well. 14 points, 5 of 10, like, didn't take a lot of shots. A lot of the shots were going to Robertson, were going to Caleb Martin. And to me, like, you need Jimmy Butler to take all the shots. And Kevin and Kyle Lowry was a little suspect in this series. So let's keep attacking that guy.
He is not meant to be starting. That's just not how it should be going for him at this point in his career. I think a couple final points for me for the Celtics team. I think it's the most interesting thing to me is really like how this series in particular has been defined less by what's going on the court and more like what's going on inside the players' heads.
Like the chatter from everybody.
I mean, that is part of it for sure. I just think this series is one of the few examples in recent memory where it's like this series is really being played mentally more so than on the court. I don't know how to explain that other than
it's a mental battle right
that.
now.
It really is. And I think the funniest thing is like how the two teams' fortunes have changed based on one factor, and that is really just playing as a team. Like, that's why the Heat are as far as they are. Say whatever you will, people will constantly, Jimmy Butler this, Jimmy Butler that, Michael Jordan's son, whatever. Jimmy Butler has been fantastic, but I promise you, Jimmy Butler could not single-handedly take a team to the finals. They made it this far because they play like a team and trust each other to be in the right spots, make the right choices, make the right pass, hit the open guy. That's what this team does. And I feel like that's how they were battering the East. Like, they were getting through the East by capitalizing on the players that were not doing that. And they happened to run into the Celtics at a time where they didn't have the identity of team basketball. Like, the Celtics just did not have it, considering how long they had been together. And I feel like that's really flipped. Like, now all the pressure is on Jimmy. The role players on the Heat have kind of started to sag off a little bit. They're not hitting their shots like they were in the last couple series.
They're back to who they are.
Yeah, this is what the Heat were all season long. And I'm not saying they're not going to win. They could very well come out and absolutely stomp on the Celtics' throat the next game. I don't even think that's anywhere out of the realm of possibility. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But it's definitely possible. But those last 2 games, it was a complete flip in mental character from the two teams. And I think it's funny. One storyline, one narrative we can lay to bed forever after this series is that this Celtics team does not like each other. I think that narrative has to go die in a pit for the rest of eternity.
Yes,
I don't want to hear it.
Yes,
it's honestly, it's so nonsense. This team would not have come together and gotten 2 wins at the position they were in if they did not like each other. That is not how basketball works. This is a team that does not want their run to come to an end. Whether it's this series or just generally speaking, like these dudes are playing for each other. They're playing to continue playing together. They're continuing to play this hard because they want to win a championship as a squad.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's greatly underestimated about the Celtics team, and I would say by their own selves as well. Like I feel like they forget that sometimes, but they clearly care about each other. They clearly want to win as a team. But I'm so sick of that narrative. I don't want to hear it ever again. Like Jaylen Brown doesn't like Jason Tatum. He doesn't want to be the younger brother. Dude, any of it. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, I think the final point that I'll say to this whole thing is Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, keep the game simple. You are too good to just do these bad moves that lead to just really bad 3-point shots, which leads to turn transitions for the other team, and they just end up getting points. And, if Marcus Smart can keep the turnovers down and, the boneheaded plays that he seems to always do, like there was one yesterday that really got me frustrated. I think he was trying to throw it to, I can't remember if he's trying to throw it to Al Horford or Robert Williams.
Were you talking about Jaylen Brown?
No. Marcus Smart.
Oh, Tatum? Oh, Tatum had that awful behind the back full court pass turnover thing. Whatever.
Yeah, he was trying to get on Sports Center.
That was awful.
No, but the one for me was the Marcus Smart from the half court. Just tried to lob it to the guy, and it just clanked off the backboard. And led to a transition break for them and scored. So, again, if they can limit that stuff from those three guys, I think that this is a series that the Celtics win. I think that Tatum and Brown will show up in game number 6. If they played like they did yesterday, again, they don't have to score a lot. They just have to be efficient. They have to be efficient with their shots and, be patient in the zone and really just look to not overdo it. Because when you overdo it, clearly you see what happens on the court. It leads to transition points for the other team. But again, that's just kind of my final take. And, shout out to Joe Mazzulla. I gave him a lot of shtick for the first 3 games. Again, want to apologize for that. Just in terms of I know he has the coaching ability. We've seen it throughout the whole season. Offensively, I think he is a genius. Now it's about just, continuing this success for this team. And so we're hoping that we can get to an NBA Finals and hopefully this time win it. But I know that this will be a tough one to have. But, anything happens. And with Paul Pierce in the building, made it even easier.
Yeah. I mean, it helps to have that Boston. The only other team in professional sports, right? The Red Sox come back from a 3-0.
Yeah.
Postseason. I mean, an annoying narrative that if they get to Game 7, we're going to literally hear about, 24/7 for a week. So.
Yep. Get ready for the sports media to talk about Boston.
Yeah, abuse any point of interesting statistics they can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It'll be painful.
But yeah, let us know in the comment section down below what you guys think about the Boston Celtics versus Miami Heat. Are you still a believer in the Boston Celtics, or do you think it's going to be a party in Miami as they head to both teams head to Miami? Do you think it's going to be a party for Miami? Are they going to go and win the Eastern Conference Finals and take on the Golden State Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets, the Golden State Nuggets? You can tell it's the weekend for me. But let us know in the comment section down below what you guys think about that and everything in the comment section down below. And really quick, let's look at some comments here. We got Drunk saying, my boy Tatum about to pull off the impossible. The fact that everybody was doing too little or too much. I think that was to your point, Pete. I thought that he had no chance, but Mazzulla said, watch this. Drunk said Tito Horford. And then we got Sean in the chat. Going to be talking about one of the topics we're going to talk about later today. And that is Silver called the NBA is too tough. Didn't seem to care when the Warriors beat the crap out of Sabonis for 7 games straight. Okay. Should we move on to, what do you think? Should we do LeBron or should we do the Adam Silver thing first?
Let's do LeBron. Let's do the Adam Silver thing. Let's do it.
All right. We're going to go
Adam, comment about it anyway.
Yeah. We're going to talk about this clip that went viral for Adam Silver. This is, of course, on Showtime Basketball. Kevin Garnett, the host, asking Adam Silver some questions here. So we're going to listen really quick to it. And then we're gonna get our opinion on it. We're gonna listen to probably like a minute and a half of it. Hopefully, it doesn't take too long. But I just want to get to the point where Adam Silver mentions the NBA and the '90s. So let's listen in.
Follow up, because I want to know, will there ever be a time in our lives where the hand check comes back? Is that going? Is this kind of the wave in which we're going now?
I'll answer it coming from the fan in me, which is, and maybe data comes into play here because I can look at television ratings and other measures of interest. There was a point, I believe, probably in around the late 90s when the game became too physical. And I think we lost some of
For our viewers, you mean?
Yeah, and I think for our fans, from the aesthetic enjoyment of the game, where it de-emphasized the particular skill a player had and maybe weighted too heavily physicality, where a big, strong player could come in and prevent a incredibly skilled player from doing those kinds of things. I think of, not that he's a small guy, but a smaller player like Steph Curry can do on the floor. I think that when you think of some of his ability to shoot, his ability to move through the paint, that if guys could just bang him and knock him to the ground, as that was once the case in the league, I don't think that would be a better brand of basketball. I also think we have to find the right balance, because I know when I sit in the stands or talk to friends sometime, they want to bring back, and we've tried to bring back a little bit more of the physicality. Like, I think people like to see hard defense. I mean, it goes a little bit before to what you and I are talking about, like touch and feel. Like, I don't think either people like that idea that guys can go through unscathed and like you're protecting your star players. And in fact, we made some changes.
Okay, and we'll end it right there because he was talking about more of the he was talking more about the rule where the offensive players were trying to sell that from the back foul that Trae Young and many other players made famous. I think it's a very interesting conversation to have, Pete, because I know, like, Sean's texting in the chat right now about it. What is your take on this Adam Silver basically kind of saying that the NBA became too physical in the 90s and kind of I would say maybe as a fan, he obviously said as a fan. I don't know if that's supposed to mean that he is trying to save himself from, he obviously has a bias. I think that's clear. Like he said as a fan, which I'm going to say is more of his bias, that he is more in favor of not a lot of physicality, but more of skill. Pete, we both watched European soccer. It's kind of the same thing for me. In many instances, but what is your take on Adam Silver saying all this?
All right, I'm gonna play the centrist role on this one, because in a lot of ways I agree with Silver. Like, I do agree. Like, I think in a lot of ways the physicality of the 90s is incredibly overrated. Not in the sense that it wasn't physical. I just think, like, that doesn't necessarily make the game more fun to watch, right? Like, I just think one of the things that's completely lacking with Adam Silver's take on this, and in general how the NBA actually, like, goes about officiating the physicality of the game, is the lack of consistency. Like, to me, that is the number one problem with all of it. Like, you have to figure out a way to get all of your people on board with the vision of what is consistent in terms of how we officiate physicality in basketball, right? It cannot be player specific. It can't be team specific. Like, and I'll give you an example. I'll go with what Sean's saying. Like, I'm not going to focus on Sabonis, because I do think in a lot of ways he was just bad in that series. Sean, I'm sorry. I like Sabonis a lot. I don't necessarily think that was all because of that. However, there clearly is a bias with teams like the Warriors. And I would say in particular with a guy like Draymond. Like, Draymond gets so much leeway in terms of how he plays basketball in comparison to 95% of the league. And most of that is because he's a star. And if they officiated him the way they officiate someone like, let's say, Haywood Highsmith on the Miami Heat, he would foul out every single game. He just would. Like, there are certain guys that they get calls that other players don't, and vice versa. that is where the inconsistency of the game really sticks out the most, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, when you have, such dramatic changes in the way a game can be officiated by one crew to the next,
Yeah.
I think that's where most fans find themselves the most frustrated. Like, if you
Mm-hmm.
could just watch a game of basketball 7 consecutive nights and the game doesn't have to go the same way. Let's say same level of officiating, just is, at least moderately consistent in comparison to what it is now. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
people would talk about it nearly as much as they do. There's so much variance from night to night and so much difference in the personality of the referees. And this is why dude, people are gonna just absolutely dunk on me for this, I bet. I'm huge on robot officiating for stuff like this. And I don't mean
Yeah, I'm gonna dunk on
replace
you.
I don't. Hey, this is the problem. I don't mean replace all human officiating. I think just like the real world with this AI revolution, people completely dismiss both things working in tandem, right? Human eyes and hands with the actual aid of a smarter intelligence on the back end, right? To clean up the mistakes. Like that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff, that's valuable, man. That's like having like the perfect auto grader on your paper before you turn it in, right? Like you should know if I'm making a call that 99% of the time goes the other way, you should have some sort of system that tells you, hey, I know you see this, but most of the time we don't call it this way. So let's just not do it this time, right? Like even if you saw it, let's just go back on it. There's nothing wrong with that. Like to me, that's where we run into the worst stuff possible with this,
Mm-hmm.
these officiated games. And the clear bias of, the fact that we can have like here's one other good example before I let you go, Bernie. Like the fact that we can end up in situations like we did in the Phoenix Denver series, right? Where we have Scott Foster and there's a statistic that like Chris Paul has never won a closeout game or whatever it was. I don't remember what that stat was. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like he's 0-13 when Scott Foster referees like an away game or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. That kind of stuff is inexcusable. That's inexcusable levels of just clear bias in your officiating. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's not directly physicality related, but it all bleeds together. It's not, mutually exclusive. Like officiating is the core commonality between all of these issues, in particular the physical stuff. So, I don't know, man. It's really tough. I agree with him on the sentiment that I would rather watch the game based more about skill than physicality. You can't eliminate physicality from the game either.
Yeah.
So you do need to find a balance. And I think that they are really struggling to understand that it doesn't need to be one way or the other. It should be a balance of always.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of made my gripes with the NBA in terms of officiating. I think to me the biggest problem in the NBA right now, and really just in sports in general, I would say just like from high school, honestly all the way to the NBA, is that officiating is officiated at different times of the year. Playoff
Mhm.
basketball is officiated differently than preseason or
Yep.
regular season. And I would like, and this is just me also as a coach too, like for my league that I'm in, I would like the same consistencies from not only just a uh preseason or a tune-up game. I would like that from day one, everything is officiated like a playoff game because I think we need to hold the refs and we need to hold the NBA to a higher standard of
Yep.
officiating because in the playoffs, I actually think it's been pretty good. Like there may have been maybe a couple missed calls here and there, but in terms of the way that they're allowing some of that physicality, the way that they're allowing some of the stuff that we're seeing out here, that's exactly how I think basketball should be played. I think Adam Silver talked about the fine tune and balance. I know Sean is upset because of the Sabonis stuff, but um, I think that obviously refs are going to miss calls, and
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those things too where you do have to allow some of the physicality. I just think that it's been pretty good in the playoffs, and I think that for the NBA, instead of talking about oh it's too physical or because I think the problem that I come across with Adam Silver is that he kind of admits that he allowed some of the non-physical stuff to not happen anymore. Like I to me, like the perfect example was that 2016 NBA Finals that the Cavaliers won, um, where they were allowed to be a little bit more rough with Steph Curry. Like they were allowed to like hit him a little bit, not like in a facetious way or like a malintent, but as he's cutting through, you were able to kind of give him a little bit of an elbow, give him a little bit of a, I would say, hand check, quote unquote. But you were able to like rough him up a little bit so that when he was finally getting to a spot, he was tired. And clearly throughout that whole series, he was like that. And I just think that as soon as I think Adam Silver saw that, in my opinion, is where I think Adam Silver, especially from, I would say, from 17 all the way to, I would say, 20, I felt like it was a little like, I guess the daintiest type of fouls, or the fouls that would be very soft, would get called in the playoffs. And so,
Yep.
I think Adam Silver needs to understand, that he needs to come across as well as not as a fan, but as what's best for our league. And I think that he has done that with the NBA playoffs that we're in right now. I don't think that it is as soft as it has been in the last couple of years, but I think just like in any sport, you need both the physicality and the skill to be a balance.
Yep.
And I just feel like, Adam Silver saw it was too physical. So in the skill, obviously with the best players, they were able to show out. Some of the non-best players, the more I would guess the players that wouldn't last as long wouldn't show off as much or show out as much. But then he kind of went the other way, I would say, once he got to the 2017, and really I think it's starting to balance itself out a little bit more. But I think to me, like just like in any sport, and I don't know if you're the same way, Pete, I like to see both. Like you have to be able to physically withstand some of the stuff that you have to deal with in sports. Like, you're not going to be the strongest, you're not going to be the fastest, but you're going to have to be durable to deal with some of that stuff. And I think that,
1,000%.
and I think that's the reason why the post play, except for Jokic, I think Jokic has changed the game for post players, just in terms of, it used to be known as like the worst shot in the NBA. I think a lot of analysts talk about it because the thing is that you put the reason why people said it was the worst spot is because you didn't put the right people in to post up. Like Jokic is a guy where he can pass out of it and get you scores, or he can like score it himself. Like he is a triple threat player in the post. And a lot of the times I would say in the early 2000s, it was, let's just get anybody and everybody that's a big guy in the post and he'll have to just do some moves. Where now we're seeing more of the skilled guys get in the post and they're able to just make plays off of it because you have to respect it.
100%. And I think what you're saying is you're hitting on something that is literally what we're talking about. Like Jokic is a balance of physicality and skill. Like he is arguably, of all the big guys who are, perennial MVP guys, there's a reason so many people think he's the best player in the league right now, is because he's the perfect balance of physicality and skill. Like Giannis is the physicality guy, right? Like he is all physicality, 100%. He can get wherever he wants because he's such a freak athletically. I would consider Embiid more of a skill guy. Like he leans more into his skill the older he gets than he does into his physicality, which gets him into serious trouble. And honestly, his physicality is lackluster enough so much that he usually flames out of the playoffs because he gets hurt, right?
Yeah.
Jokic is right in the middle of those two guys. He's not the same type of athlete, obviously, as Giannis. There's no way you can watch Jokic play and not say physically he's a freak. He has insane stamina. I just have to repeat it because for the size he is, to be able to do what he does. And sometimes, Bernie, I don't know if you've noticed this. This is one of the first series, or that Lakers series is one of the first times it stuck out as clearly as it did with Jokic. That dude is so much faster than people give him credit for. When he is giving those little handoffs and him and Jamal Murray are doing, the little pick and rolls and stuff like that, the way he comes around is like lightning quick for how big he is. And dude, I mean, he plays in the way, like what you're saying about the early 2000s. Again, 100% true. They would always lean so much into the physicality that was what they thought was the ideal type of player to put down in the low post into the paint, get those baskets and clean stuff up. But that isn't really, it's just not that simple. Nobody really in any capacity can lean one way only and truly become the best of the best. Like LeBron will never get enough credit for it. I think at different points of his career, people have thought he's one way or the other. Early his physicality was just, so dominant. He was such a freak athlete. He could get away with anything, but he's always been both. He's always had the skill and the physicality. Kobe, always both. Michael Jordan, both. It's always the same way. It's both. You need to have both parts of it. And the game needs to recognize that. It's on the small level of individuals, but it also needs to be game wide. Like they need to understand that basketball is a sport of both. And realistically, all the best sports are both. Like you're saying, soccer, both. Boxing, both. MMA, both. Anything you could come up with, it needs all parts to be complete. But basketball has like an identity crisis right now. Like they don't know what they want to be. And I think part of that is maybe the type of player that inhabit the league right now kind of leads to some of those like dilemmas, right? Like I'll give you a Trey. Trey is kind of a problem in terms of like, how do you officiate a guy that small that is constantly not really looking for contact, but ends up finding it? Like he's not a physical guy in any way, shape, or form. Steph is not really physical, but more so than Trey. You know what I mean? Like, you just have these guys that they try and cater to one way or the other, and at different points in the league, they've gone more in one way. They clearly lean towards the skilled guys now, clearly. But that's the longevity of that is not great because Trey and the Trey types. I mean, we see what happens to them in the playoffs. Like if you're just that, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing that I didn't mention as well is that, we're starting to get more of the European players, and the European players and all the leagues that they play in are more physical than the NBA.
More physical.
And to me, like, we need to, like, and I think that's the reason why Adam Silver wants to start playing these other teams from across the pond or, across the way is because, it's a different style of basketball. Just like in any sport, I just because I'm a big Premier League guy, like it's a different sport when you go and play in Germany or if you go play in Spain or if you go play in Italy. Like every place has its kind of flair, has its kind of things that they do well. And I think basketball is kind of entering that moment and that I would say entering in that phase of its life that it's an international game. Like the goal that the NBA made was to make it an international game. David Stern, all those years back with the Dream Team, wanted to make it an international game. And it has become that, that I think a lot of people don't realize that. And that's kind of why, they get mad at a guy like Jokic. They get mad at a guy like Giannis. They get mad at a guy, maybe not so much Embiid because Embiid is more finesse, but they get mad at those two guys in particular because those two guys are more physical. They're willing to bang down low, and it really frustrates opponents like Karl Anthony Towns, these other kind of bigs that have come from the American AAU circuit. And it's frustrating them because in AAU, I don't know if you've watched or have been a part of that horrendous culture, at least the lower part of it. I would say the upper echelon is not bad just because that's where the great talent is. But in terms of officiating, it's a completely different monster. It's like, a touch is a foul. Like the inconsistencies of the fouls to me is what frustrates me the most as a coach coaching AAU. And, I think that that's kind of where, as a basketball community, especially in the States, we need to comprehend and understand that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Wembanyama brings such an interesting dynamic to the sport. I mean, he is like kind of the prototype of what we're talking about. He is the ultimate convergence of skill and physicality at huge size. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the league contends with that, like that change in the dynamic, Yeah. That's why we're seeing such a resurgence of the big guy, right? The big guys that are really understanding that they can use their size, but also like take the time to develop
Yeah.
their skills and become more than just a physical monster. Those are the guys that are succeeding. Like every one of them that are really truly popping off, and the ones that aren't are the ones that have no skill, like, or no physicality. Like the Carl Anthony Towns is the lack of physicality. The DeAndre Ayton is the no skill. You know what I mean? Like those are the two divergence points, and then you have the Jokic's in the middle and the Embiid's in the middle and probably the Wemby's in the middle too.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing too, not to go on more tangents about this, but Wembanyama played in an NBA kind of style game and going against Scoot Henderson, had 35 and 37 with the same NBA rules, same type of whatever you want to call it. And he still was able to get to his points, able to get to his spots. And here's the other thing too, Pete. Do you remember like 10 years ago, or maybe it was like 20 years ago at this point now, a lot of people called European soft. They thought they were soft. Like
that's because they didn't watch though. I think that's what we know now. Like to me, I just didn't watch, Bernie. There's so many of these guys that make statements like that clearly still don't watch. Like that's the problem with all of it. They think they know better than they really know. And I think that is kind of not all that far off of why people have such a problem with Adam Silver saying this and why this is such a discussion point. It's because people don't like change, one. Like we're witnessing the change of the sport, and it's not like it's new. It's been happening for 10 years now. But there's a lot of people who just think they know more than they really do about it. And I'm not saying I'm the arbiter of what's true and what's not. I'm not saying you are either, or this channel as a whole. All I'm saying is this. Basketball is such a diverse sport. And I don't mean the people who play, but the styles of play that are in it. It's part of the reason it's the greatest sport, in my opinion. You have so many different types of players, types of teams that can make it far, do their thing, and you have so many different styles of basketball that can produce good results, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where all these, I hate to just blame it on old heads, because I think there's a lot of young people who get convinced that the 90s way of basketball is the preeminent form of basketball. NBA 90s basketball is the ultimate gold standard of what basketball should be. I promise you that's not true. It was great then. It was great in the 80s for different reasons. It was great in the 2000s for different reasons. Basketball changes. It evolves as a sport. That's why you have guys who are complete mold breakers of what the sport can be and why it, so dramatically shifts on the actions of certain individuals. Like Steph Curry is the best example in recent history. Like people see you can succeed playing that type of basketball, and then you do it. I think Steph is so greatly helped by the fact that he's an American guy. Imagine if Steph played the way he did, changed basketball the way he was, but let's say he's a Spanish guy, right? It would be received so differently than what it is when Steph does it. And I think it's just because it's easier for people to say, hey, Steph is from this lineage of 90s basketball, 80s basketball, professional American basketball, but he doesn't play anything like those guys. No. He just does. That's okay. It changes.
Yeah, exactly. And, we can get into the politics of, I feel like there is some political stuff going on in terms of the way that these owners and the way that these teams maneuver their squads and stuff like that. I think that also plays a part into it in terms of, maybe I'm going on a tangent about something else, more about like.
Oh, you're right.
I mean,
you have the Daryl Moreys of the world, the analytics guys who that's what they care about. You have the, Bob Myers who that, let's go all shooting, you know what I mean? Like these guys, they do have their biases, and then you do have the old heads who think, you need the big five who can, clump up the paint and, stop people at the rim, but he doesn't need to shoot. We just need the cookie cutter format of a basketball team. But that's just not how it works, man. It's just not.
Yeah. But let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of Adam Silver's comments? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? And also, what do you guys make about Adam Silver admitting to the NBA being too physical in the 90s? Do you think that it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? And let us know in the comment section down below what you guys think about Adam Silver's comments. All right, Pete, we got to move on to the next story because I know we're crunched for time. Uh, LeBron James.
Yeah.
I think that this is a talking point that we're going to definitely talk about. First of all, before we get into the retirement rumors, LeBron James is going to have foot surgery. There's a report on that. I think that he's going to be out for 2 months. Obviously he was favoring his foot in a lot of these playoff games. And he is known to have torn a tendon, I believe, in his foot, which is going to require surgery. And like I said, going to be out for 2 months. But the more surprising thing that we didn't really mention, or at least I didn't mention talking about all these games, was the fact that LeBron James has kind of hinted at retirement during his post-game interview. And I believe that him and Anthony Davis did not give out exit interviews for the Lakers. And so, Pete, we talked about this a little bit in our chat, but what do you make of the rumors that LeBron James is going to be retiring? Do you believe them? Do you not believe them? And what do you think is LeBron James's ultimate move?
I would go so far as to say a 0% chance he retires, like a real retirement. There's just no way. I think it's more if there is even any semblance of a retirement, it's a 1-year hiatus, right? And I still don't think that's going to happen. I think he loves playing basketball too much to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't think he'd sacrifice a year. I think it's as simple as this. He's putting the heat on not only the Lakers, but everybody around him, right? He announced today he isn't retiring. He was never going to retire no matter what. It just wasn't going to happen. It's a move to pressure the people around him to understand his time is limited. They already know that, but he's saying even more so, I'm almost 40. I'm hurt because I'm old. You need to make sure you help me out or I truly am going to go. I'm going to go do something else because he doesn't need to be where he is right now, right? I mean, he has all the leverage in every situation he's always been in pretty much, especially now, especially now.
Yeah.
He has really forged the NBA into what it is in terms of the player, roulette of moving around and going to these different spots. I just think it's as simple as this. He's putting himself in the best position to go win another ring as possible. Whether that's with the Lakers or not, I don't know. I would put it like this. He's got 3 options. And they're all in varying degrees of likelihood. Lowest percentage is that he takes a year off. I don't see it happening. I would be astounded by that. There's no way. 2, he's really considering wanting to move teams again. He's not going to leave California. There's just no way. Not with Bronny going to USC. He's not going to move the year his son decides to go to, Southern California University. That's just not happening. But I mentioned this in our chat, Bernie. I've heard some people floated around there. I think it makes more sense than it ever has before. LeBron to the Warriors, I honestly don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. He fills the exact hole that the Warriors need.
Interesting. Okay.
And here's the thing. This is the reason I think it's really different, Bernie. This is the first time, I would argue, in the entirety of the Warriors dynasty where they look more fragile than LeBron. Like, their position is more fragile than his in terms of the conscience of, or what's the word I'm looking for? The consensus of NBA fans, right? Like, I feel like his reception to moving, there would certainly be a lot of people who would give him a ton of grief for going to the Warriors. However, they were discombobbled and not good enough where I do think people would say, oh, they need LeBron, unlike the difference with KD going there, right? And we saw one thing I thought was really interesting about the Warriors-Lakers series, Bernie, and I don't know if you noticed this either. There was like real heated moments when the Cavs and the Warriors used to play. Like, they did not like each other. That was not the case with the Warriors and Lakers. Like, you could see the respect and admiration that they all had for each other. In so much so that Draymond didn't really play like Draymond in that series. And I would argue it's the reason they lost. Like, Draymond was not up to his his normal level of Draymond-ness in that series. And
He took the. Is it because he's clutch? He's part of the clutch familia.
I just think his perception of LeBron is dramatically different than it's ever been. And I would say if there's ever a time where, Draymond is making the KD version of his phone call to LeBron, it's this season. This is the season. Let's all go get a fifth one together and ride off into the sunset. We can, cap off all of our, 2010s dynasty runs on either side of the NBA all as one unit and do it. Now, do I think that this is more likely than the finals situation? No, I don't. I still think that's kind of a long shot, but I think it's more likely than it ever has been before. Third is he's simply just pressuring the Lakers to make more moves. It's that simple. He's saying, hey, you guys have to sign these young guys I want to play around. Reeves, Rui, have to pay them. You have to go get somebody else.
Yep.
I genuinely think the Kyrie rumors are overblown. I just don't think that it makes any sense for him to be a Laker because it can't keep Reeves or Rui if they go sign Kyrie to a max. They can't do that, one. And two, everybody thinks it's so simple that Kyrie and LeBron are like locked into this destiny of playing together again. And I just don't think that's true. I think Kyrie wants the money. I think Kyrie wants the money more than winning, and LeBron wants to win more than he cares about anything else, more than getting guys paid. So I think he's going to be a Laker again next season. I think they're going to try and bring back Reeves and Rui. I just think they're going to end up making another big move. I don't know who it's going to be, but they're going to have to go get a third star. I think that's really what he wants. LeBron wants to be the third guy,
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to come across as the third guy, but like physically on the court, he wants to be the third guy. You know what I mean? Like he needs, and I think he finally understands that AD just doesn't have that gear. Like we talked about this a lot in our chat in the final couple games, and I bemoaned how frustrated I was about AD in that final closeout game against the Nuggets. Like he does not have that drive to take himself to that place where the greats really do. That final gear of I refuse to go down like this. He just doesn't have it. And I think LeBron finally understood. If he doesn't have that, AD certainly is not going to bring it. We need somebody else. So I'm interested. What do you think about it, Bernie?
I mean, no, you're good. I mean, I just think that it's a nothing sandwich, just like you talked about. I mean, again, LeBron James leaving 2 years, $97.1 million on the table. That's not going to happen. That's way too much money. Anybody, I don't care how old you are. I will literally make up fake injuries just to get 2 years.
Sorry to already interrupt you. Can I push back just a little bit? I actually think it's less about the money.
Well, I know that, but in terms of just like the money, in terms of like,
I think he would walk from the money. I really do.
I don't think so.
He could go get Bernie. He could go get $97 million in his sleep. Bernie, he could get that in his sleep anywhere, and he could retire and make more money than that.
But I don't know. To me, I just think that the LA area for him is too nice. I just think he likes it too much. That I don't necessarily think that he'll want to leave. Plus, his son's playing there. Plus, Bryce, his younger son, is also playing at Sierra Canyon. So I definitely don't see him retiring anytime soon. Maybe in the next year or two once Bronny's in the league. But I think at the end of the day, what it boils down to is what you said. Like, LeBron James is tired of having to carry the team and really consistently carry the team, because we know at this point in LeBron's career, he's not going to be a guy that gives you 40 plus points in 3 or 4 straight games. He's going to give you 1 or 2 in a series. And so you need to be ready for that moment. And to be ready for that moment, AD has to step up his post moves. I mean, he needs to develop some sort of game, because right now, I don't know what signature move or what thing that AD does well, that besides defense, but like what defense,
is he was so good on defense in the playoffs. He has no solid offense consistently.
There's not like a go-to move for AD, and that's kind of the frustrating part. I mean, we see guys like Jokic have different moves. Like we know everyone likes the step back behind the back stuff. I mean, that's not really a move. But in terms of like Jokic, he has post moves and post ability to go score the basket at the rim. He has his floater. Like AD needs to develop something in the offseason, needs to work with Phil Handy. Again, I'm a Phil Handy guy, as you can tell. But, needs to work with him or whoever, not Lethal Shooter, because Lethal Shooter doesn't do jack for anybody.
You don't think Drew Hanlon should come out?
Drew Hanlon should stay far away. I think everybody should be going to Phil Handy. All basketball players should be going to Phil Handy.
I think they should be contacting Bernie. Personally, that's my thing.
I'm more of a coach than a trainer. But, I just think that for me, what I would love to see more than anything for the Lakers is getting that third superstar. And Sean, talk about who would they get? It has to be Kyrie or no one, right?
There's other guys.
I think Trae Young. I think there's a little smoke with the fire with Trae Young. I know a lot of people are gonna. I know you're not gonna like that one.
I don't think they have enough to get him. I think you're in the right realm though. It's a guy in the same position as Trae. It's somebody like that, but maybe like half a tier below Trae. Like Levine or DeRozan, I still think make a lot of sense. It has to be somebody who can eat up shots. It has to be.
The problem with Levine is I feel like he's too inconsistent. That's my.
Trust me, I'm not saying he's a perfect fit. I'm just saying it literally has to be somebody in the realm of, that 15 shots a game. Somebody who can shoot threes.
Could they get Dame? You think they have the assets to get Dame?
If they don't have the assets for Trae, they don't have the assets for Dame. They don't. Neither of them make sense. Here's my top 5 candidates. It's DeRozan, it's Levine, it's Bradley Beal. Those 3 are easy choices. Okay. I hate to pick another Wizards player. Honestly, no, I still don't think I don't think Kuzma's all that far off of like they bring him back and he just scores for them. I hate that. I'm not gonna put him as my 4th. I hate that too much. Who was the other person I was just thinking about? Here, Brent, I'm gonna give you another one. I don't know if they should do this, but I think somebody like Randall is very available.
I know you want to get rid of him. I know you want to get rid of him.
I'm just saying they have to think in the realm of who can we afford, who's definitely above average. They literally have to be somebody who can shoot threes. That's undeniably factual proof. Like they need somebody who shoots threes with LeBron. And I think Randall proved a lot of people wrong. Like he can shoot threes. He's a good shooter. He's just inconsistent, in a mental mess. I'm not saying that's who it's going to be. He's definitely available and better than what he's going to be available for is kind of my point.
You're a great used car salesman, man. I think you would sell a ton of cars.
Hey, and Sean just named my 5th one. I think Chris Middleton is someone definitely in the realm of availability. They could go get him for a very reasonable price, and he can eat up a lot of shots. Those are literally the exact types of guys they need. If I was them, Bernie, if I was truly them, I would be doing every single thing imaginable to turn AD into two players. Turn him into, like, here's just an example, all right? Turn him into, like, and this is a terrible
Randall
deal. People are going to be really... Here's Randall and Fournier for AD. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm saying, like, and none of this makes sense financially. I'm just saying the types of players they should swap around. What about somebody like, let's say, definitely a downgrade. Let's say somebody like Porzingis and Beal, right? Okay. A deal like that where you get center who can replace AD, somebody who's definitely more of an offensive threat than AD. I would consider KP a better offensive player than Anthony Davis at this point in time, right? He can definitely shoot threes much better than AD. And then Beal, and you get this upgrade of one position for sure is severely upgraded, and then the other is maybe only a slight downgrade. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You're getting value over at multiple positions over just the one. I do think like that is the type of deal they need to be looking for. Like something where I just don't think they have a lot of stuff to turn into other things. Like D'Lo is not worth anything to anybody on planet Earth. Nobody's taking D'Lo in a sign and trade if you drove him there and paid for his rent for the next 2 years. Nobody's taking him. Nobody wants him. They don't have anything they can trade, Bernie. That's kind of their biggest issue. So they're going to have to move somebody they don't really want to move. And I think AD is the guy that they should move, personally.
Yeah.
What about this, Bernie? Let me give you another idea. What if they called up Minnesota? They're like, hey, Minnesota, here's AD. Here's AD.
Give you Cat.
Give us Cat, and they need to give something else. Let's say it's Cat and I'm trying to even think. Let's say it's Cat and Nas Reed. Give us those two guys for AD. And then we'll figure out the rest of our roster. I don't think that's a terrible idea either. I don't think it makes them a better. I mean, defensively they're much worse, so they'd have to fix some spots on their roster. But I don't know, man. They're in a really tough spot. This might have been their best chance with their current construction.
Well, I mean, they should have. Obviously, you have to strike when the deal is hot. But I just think that the problem is they just needed to wait.
Should have done that Miles Turner Buddy Hield one early in the season.
Yeah, I mean that should have been one that they done. But it's just frustrating because I think the Lakers had the opportunity. Like if they were able to do these trades that they did earlier in the season, I think that they would have a little bit more cohesion and more unity. It's kind of the same thing when you deal with a LeBron James team in the last couple of years now, is that you're going to be making moves mid-season to late season, and what do? Like, there's no way to gain that sort of camaraderie, that sort of touch or presence that you're looking for when you get them so late in the season. Like, they have to learn a whole different system, whole different scheme. But I just think for me, like, LeBron James is looking to be the third option on the team now. And unfortunately, all the trades besides the superstar ones, maybe Bradley Beal makes the most sense. But
fortunately for them, he does make the most sense.
It would just be unfortunate for LeBron to deal with, guys that can't score and, to create stuff for themselves. I think LeBron James wants to be less and less relied on than what he has been throughout these last couple of years. And so, I just think that for the Lakers, they need to start looking at what players fit their stuff, what things that they should do. But, at the end of the day, the Lakers, like you said, don't really have a lot of assets. Rui can sign elsewhere. He's not legally obligated, and there's no rules that say
somebody's going to overpay him too. I would bet somebody will send an overpay for him.
Well, I think people are going to pay for him and Reeves. I could see both of those guys.
Reeves for sure. The good thing with Reeves is that they do have some financial rules in their favor with Reeves because he's their guy. Like they picked him up first.
But the issue,
somebody's going to send him a contract they probably can't match.
Yeah, I mean the issue is going to be too with the new second level tax apron thing that came up. It's going to be harder and harder to keep your team together, and so
that apron stuff, I got to look into that. That's maybe something we should talk about like in depth as we get into the off season a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
I mean basically it just means that you can't really keep the same guys over because you have the tax is just so high.
Yeah. What is it? It goes into like a repeater tax basically where it just starts like compounding on itself the longer you keep a guy like that.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of stupid.
I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. I think what they want is a little bit more parity in the league. And, I think that that's what they're kind of looking for. And, for these teams to not like sign mid-level exception guys, like for example, one for me would be, a couple years back when DeMar DeRozan, before he shined to Chicago, he was a guy that would have been a mid-level exception player for the Lakers, and that's not going to happen anymore.
No, that's just not it. And we know every season, Bernie, teams that go on like runs like this Lakers team, right? Have young dudes who outperform expectations, maybe show what people thought they could be, and they're coming up on expiring deals every single time. Works very similar to when a guy who's kind of like a semi-highly touted recruit, somebody who had a good regular season in college basketball, has a crazy March Madness, and then they get drafted 15 spots too high. It's the same thing. Somebody like Rui is going to end up making like $20 million a season. I'm sorry, Rui has not shown he's worth that much consistently enough to get that contract. However,
he's worth every penny.
He's not. He's going to get it though. Somebody's going to pay him that. Somebody's going to pay Reeves $98.7 million, his max available contract. See, I think Reeves, I'd be shocked if he gives up the opportunity to play with LeBron. He just seems like a guy that gets it, and if he's close to the amount he would make somewhere else, I think he's going to stay. Do you have anything else to say on this? I have a few questions I want to ask you as we start wrapping up.
The only thing I'll say, man, I had my train of thought and I just lost it.
I'm so sorry. I totally interrupted you. My
No,
bad.
no, you're good. You're good. I'm just trying to think of it. Oh, that was it. I don't know why Sean's comment made me think of it. But I think we also need to start looking at, especially when we talk, and I think we'll talk more about it when we mention the apron tax once again. To me, the biggest issue is that, like you talked about with Rui not being worth that much money, is
It
that
might be worth that much.
is that right now, like the NBA is overpaying for their assets, right? Because there's no reason to not overpay, because then you can start making trades, the trades make sense. And that to me is the biggest issue with the NBA in terms of contract wise, is that we need to start paying people what they're worth and not overpaying for stuff like that happened. Like, to me, the biggest one was the Otto Porter Jr. deal that happened way back.
Oh my God.
Back when the whole, I would say, like,
Mozgov too. I think of Mozgov and I think of Otto Porter. Those are my
like
top
those
two.
were two guys. Like, there's no reason those guys should be getting those type of contracts, but with the way that the NBA league is structured, the way that everything is, they are going to get that money. And that's
Alan Crabb.
yeah, and that's kind of the thing that the league needs to understand, and hopefully that's what the reason why they put in this rule is so we can start paying players their appropriate salary. There's a lot of guys with inflation. There's inflation in the league, and
Inflation in the league.
there's some inflation league, and not saying that these guys aren't worth some good money, but you can't tell me that some of these guys are worth over 120. Like, all of them are not worth over 120.
Not all of them, no. There's money to go around at that point.
And that's the problem with the league at this current moment, is that everybody that is a young player going into their next contract that wasn't an all-star, that didn't get the all-NBA team or all-defensive team or any of the awards, becomes a 120, or I think now it's going to be 140 type of player. And it's just, they're not worth that much money. And that's what I think the league needs to crack down on as a group and a collective. Again, I don't want to take anybody's bread away, but in order for these teams to be competitive, in order for these teams to keep the rosters that they want, they have got to lower the wages for some of these players that are not worth that much money.
Yeah, you do. And I think the one thing I do understand about this new contractual situation, like the apron stuff, is that they've made it, essentially what they've done is made it where you do not benefit as an organization from having extra cap space as much as you used to, right?
Yeah.
Like, not paying those mid-level guys and kind of just holding off and skirting around the edges so you save money and get it back later on. That is not really how it's going to work. So, like, teams like, let's say, the Pistons, right? He kind of got ahead of the ball by making that contract with Bogdanovich last year. But teams like that in the future, they're going to make those, like, Austin Reevesy type signings where they do reach out and say, hey, we have this extra cap space. We don't even know if we want you long term, but here's an $18 million contract for 4 seasons. Let's pick you up, and then we'll figure out what we can do with you later on, right? Like, we're going to just see more and more of that, which in that sense, I do like that. Like, the NBA is saying, hey, the teams that don't want to spend money are now incentivized to spend more of it. Not go crazy, but just say, hey, we do need to pay these guys, so we don't have because really every year it's there's like the rush of free agency. You have the first, like, let's say it's like 15 guys off the free agency board get really good contracts, and then it's like dirt minimum. It's the absolute bare minimum you can sign the rest of your roster for.
Exactly.
That's the type of stuff that's going to change, and in that way, I like that. Just the other stuff is going to be really interesting to see.
Exactly. And let us know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of all this? Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? LeBron James, third guy, who is it going to be? Let us know in the comment section down below.
All right, let me ask you a few questions about LeBron before we get too far. All right, and then I have one new segment I want to end each stream on coming up into the NBA draft. All right.
Okay.
First 2 LeBron questions. Let's go off the question you just asked the chat. What's your optimal third guy that this team could realistically get, Bernie? And you could say Trey. Well, you could say that, because I don't think it's possible. It's not like saying, like, go get Giannis. Like, that's definitely a different realm of possibility than somebody like Trey, right? Who, of what they could get, let's just not even think too deep about what the deal has to be. of the people that could be gotten, who do you think is your perfect, like, let's put this guy with LeBron for the last few years of his career?
I mean, I would honestly like it to be Dame. I just don't know how realistic that is. And so I probably
I
would
mean,
go,
that's somewhere in the realm of Trey. I mean, they're not too far off.
but I'd either go Dame or I would go. If I was going more realistic, I'd probably just say like either like a guy like Bradley Beal in some sort of
I mean,
combination of getting
that's
their
what
career.
you'd want to see, though? That'd be your pick of, like, I want to see this.
No, I mean I'd want to see Dame of all of
Okay.
them, but I
Okay, so
just
Dame is your pick.
realistically I
like
think it's going to be Beal.
Anybody that could come to the Lakers that I would like to see the most. I don't know. Randall has a good ring to it, but I'm not going to pick Randall. I'm going to pick.
You and your Randall, man.
There might be motive behind it. This final little stretch, man. Dude, honestly, I'll give you a person maybe you weren't thinking I was going to say, Bernie.
Kyrie.
It's funny because, no, definitely not who I was going to say. Of anybody the Lakers could go get this offseason that I would love to see play with LeBron, and this is going to make me change my second answer for an obvious reason. I think it's Draymond. I would love to see Draymond play with LeBron.
The Mon
I
pod.
would love it.
The
would
Dre
love
pod.
Yeah.
Dre
I think
pod
that
with
would be
LeBron at the end.
I think that would be a great match of personality to go with LeBron. Because one of if I had one fair criticism of LeBron, my favorite athlete of all time, I do think he is not. How do I put this? I don't think he's critical of his teammates in the right way. Like, I don't think he holds them to a high enough standard that he probably should. You know?
Yeah, he's
I
more
don't know if
passive aggressive.
I think he's much more passive than he should be at how good he is, obviously, right? Like, I think Draymond coming in and kind of instilling his Draymondness on the Lakers and around LeBron and kind of being that vocal guy, kind of the arbiter of LeBron's message, so to speak. Look at me and my fancy words I'm putting together here. I would love to see Draymond alongside LeBron. That's kind of the reason I think it would be fun to see him go to the Warriors. I don't think he makes them better on the court necessarily, Sean. But let's say I don't know, defensively they would be an absolute menace with AD and Draymond out on the court. That would be insanity. It's more the it's just the intensity that Draymond brings, I think would be really fun to see next to LeBron for this little last stretch of his career, you know? One of the things I bemoan the most about that AD game going down the stretch, Bernie, what was it? I was telling you, you're playing with LeBron. Have some pride, man. This is this dude's final stretch. You get to play, and this is the ultimate LeBron stan thing to say. Like, you're playing with my GOAT. Like, step up to the plate and try and help this guy get to the promised land one more time, right? I think somebody like Draymond would take that super seriously, personally. Yeah. He does want to max. It's not going to be him. I'm just saying, like, you know, maybe if something worked out in a certain way where he could play with Draymond, that would be the person I'd want to see him play with the most, personally. All right, second question, Bernie. If LeBron, not Draymond, if LeBron leaves, what team would you want him to see? Would you want to see him on for the last couple of years of his career?
What team would I want to see him on? You know, just for the storybook ending, I probably want him back on the Cavs. I think he'd actually be a pretty good. I actually think.
See, that's a fair answer. That's fair. I mean, I think storybook. You could also say the Heat would be interesting too.
Yeah, the Heat. But
where's he really from?
Yeah, we have no idea. New York. You want him to be a Knickerbocker?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. This one sucks. I would say Draymond or Draymond. Jesus, I have Draymond on the brain.
You got Draymond on your mind right now,
dude. I got Draymond.
He's
Draymond lives in my brain rent free. Been watching so much of his pod, dude. I can't stop. No, I haven't watched much of his pod at all. The Warriors is my easy answer. I would love to see him play with Steph and Draymond and Clay. Just get that fifth ring all as one. Be an interesting legacy discussion with all of them together for one last one. But dude, this is why what I was saying sucks. I'm gonna say the KD ring chase thing. I think it would be really fun to see him go to the Nuggets and play with Jokic. He would never do that after losing to them, getting swept by them. But just add him to that Nuggets team in kind of that Jeff Green role, you know, maybe even like an upgraded Aaron Gordon, right? I think that would be so sick to see. The IQ of Jokic and LeBron playing together would just You like a chess grandmaster inserting their will on every team mentally. Kings would be really fun too. That was one of my backup answers. Still in California, not too far from USC. That'd be a good one. All right, Bernie. Final segment. This is going to be a new thing I'm going to try and do every week. All right.
Okay.
I love my trades.
Yep.
This could be a short segment. All right. It could be as long or as short as it needs to be. It could be a terrible thing. I'm going to try and come to you every week with a draft related trade. All right. And I want you to tell me what you think of the trade. Do you think it's realistic? Do you think it works for either set of teams I give you? What do you think? Here's my trade. All right.
Let's hear it.
Detroit Pistons call up Charlotte Hornets and they say, hey, we really wanted that second pick. We really wanted it. We wanted Scoot. We weren't going to get Wemby. We wanted Scoot. Here's Jaden Ivey, and here's the 5th pick. Who says no first?
Who says no first?
Before you answer, I think that I have a few of these written down because I planned the segment and I wanted to do it for the next few weeks. This is my favorite one. I had to come out strong because I really think this is a great trade for everybody.
It's a great trade, but I think the person or the team that would say no to it would probably be the.
I think
it'd be the Pistons.
I think it'd be the Pistons too, Bernie. I think it'd be the Pistons because you could definitely get a high value guy, obviously at 5. You get one of the Thompson twins, maybe Anthony Black, somebody like that. Just think if you are already in this position where you've decided, let's go with these 2 high level guards to lead us into the future, right? Why not just say, hey, let's turn Jaden Ivey. He was a really solid rookie, but let's just turn him into the perfect version of this situation and go get Scoot. But I agree with you guys. Like I think the Pistons are giving up too much in that. So maybe they would need to get something back too. I don't know what that would be. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that trade, Bernie? Do you think that how much of a difference do you think there is between Scoot and Jaden Ivey? I would say personally for me, I think it's pretty big. But
I think Scoot can be a little bit better, but the thing that from the stuff that I've been hearing from podcasts and people that are in the know, I think a lot of people are probably pointing towards Miller being the number 2 pick from the rumors that I've been hearing.
Okay, so now this gives you my original trade, which was Jaden Ivey and the 5th to Blazers, the 3rd pick, and a sign and trade for Jeremy Grant, right? But you add in Jeremy Grant, 3rd pick, here's Jaden Ivey, here's the 5th pick. And I mean, that would have to be in the situation that Portland decides to trade Dame, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think that gives them an incredible starting point. Here's Jaden Ivey, you have Shaedon Sharpe, here's whoever you can go get with the 5th pick. Now and Anthony Simons go build with that. I think that's a great trade for everybody involved. I don't even think the Pistons would say no to that personally.
Yeah. I mean, I have when we do our draft series, I would we'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's answer Sean's question before we get out of here. Why do you think that they should move off Ivy?
It has a lot less to do with Ivy and more to do with Scoot. I just think Scoot is a culture changer. Like I think he's a guy that if you put him in a scenario where he can, kind of
be a pod mom.
Just set up the course of how they handle their business. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just like a Scoot stan already before he's even played an NBA minute. I get very not necessarily in the way they play, but I get very Chris Paul vibes from the way that Scoot carries himself. And I think if you are a young team who doesn't really have an identity, that's the type of guy you need. I'm a huge believer in that. Like you have to build culture before you can start going anywhere. And I don't think Ivy's a bad guy. I just haven't seen leadership qualities out of him like I've seen from Scoot. So in my opinion, I think you put Scoot and Cade Cunningham together and you have an insanely dynamic backcourt for next 10 years. And it could be that with Ivy. I just think would give you more leeway to move Cade into kind of a off ball guard. a lot of points. Where I don't know if Ivy gives you as much versatility that way.
I'm a
Scoot Hater, he was cheeks. He didn't have as good of a season this last year than he did the year before. I don't know. I think he kind of held back a little bit because he knew he was going to be right behind Wembanyama in the draft.
Yeah, and we'll go over all the NBA draft picks in the coming week. Actually, we're going to be doing our going over a couple of draft prospects that both Pete and I are doing some more extensive research on and coming back. And like I said, it's more of a show and tell. Talk about those guys and who we think is going to light it up, who we think could be a sneaky like sleeper pick. Like that's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the draft coming up. But let us know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of Pete's trades? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? Are you trading, if you're the Pistons, Jaden Ivey in the 5th round pick to get an opportunity to get Scoot Henderson? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, Pete. I think that's going to do it here for the Charge, unless you got anything else.
No, I don't think so. All my questions have been answered adequately today.
Yeah. And again, thank you to everybody that's been tuning in. Again, I know this was a little bit impromptu, but like I said, just had some commitments that I had to make up on Sunday. So I do apologize that we won't have a Sunday stream. I'll make sure to put out one of the video segments that you watched today out on Sunday. And, you know, like, again, shout out to Pete, the GOAT, coming through on a Friday afternoon. I know that he could be, I know he has a lot of stuff to do, so I don't want to keep him hostage too long. But
I wish we had another hour to keep going. I have a lot more stuff, but we always keep saying, Bernie and I really do want to be more consistent with this, and keep growing the channel. And we have so many ideas that we've had on the back burner for so long. It's just a matter of when do we have time. Very busy lives, but I think this summer is going to be a good summer for us. So hope you guys all stick around with us. Anybody who watches, not gotten to know us, not commented or, spoken with us, like, feel free to jump in. I think one of the things, Bernie, you always harp on in a good way is type of community that we want to build as far as basketball fans are concerned. And I just think there's so many people that, like, you're not allowed to disagree with nowadays in basketball conversations. I think that's something you and I take a lot of pride in. Like, we're not afraid to be wrong. We don't really care if people think we're wrong. And we also are full well open to hearing other people's opinions on stuff, no matter how crazy we think they are or whatever. So yeah, guys, join in if you like what you're hearing, and hopefully you guys like what we have planned in the future.
Exactly. And remember, hit that like, share, and subscribe button down below. Again, all that stuff helps us out tremendously. And we'll catch everybody on the next episode of The Charge. Maybe throughout some of the week, like I said, we'll be posting some of the segments from the stream. And like Pete said, we got a lot of stuff coming up. But the next thing that we do have coming up is, of course, the NBA draft lottery in terms of what players that we're going to be doing. So tune in next week and we'll talk more about it then. Anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Pete, thank you again for joining. And we'll catch everybody on the next episode of The Charge. Peace out, everybody.